This is CareShift with me, Southwick Biliconti, and what an exciting guest we have today. Thomas Clozel is the co-founder and CEO of Owkin, a company transforming drug discovery and clinical development through agentic AI, massive multimodal patient data networks, and precision diagnostics to unlock complex biology and deliver the right treatment to every patient. Owkin is insane. They've raised funding from renowned investors, including Sanofi, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Google Ventures. Owkin reached unicorn status in 2021 and is currently valued at over $1 billion. Before Owkin, Thomas was a practicing oncologist and assistant professor in clinical oncology at Henry Monder Hospital in Paris. Thomas, it's amazing to have you on the show, so thank you so much for being here today.
So cool to see you, Blaise. Thank you so much, Jake. I'm really happy to be with you.
I wanted to go into you co-founded Owkin in 2016.
Yeah, a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Feels
About
long.
10 years ago. I mean, and a lot has changed. So for early stage founders listening, what exact moment had kind of decided, for you to build in kind of an AI native company? And what was the path for you? I mean, in general, kind of starting off to where you are now.
I mean, like like a lot of people, like creating a company, you have a problem to solve. So in my case, was really, I was a physician, so I was treating patients with lymphoma, which is a cancer of the lymph nodes, and I was really frustrated about the lack of comprehension and understanding of the biology and why they were sick, why they were eventually relapsing, unfortunately. And I really wanted to kind of understand better what was going on. It kind of added up to a trip I made to the US for 2 years when I actually learned how to code with somebody called Olivier Demento, great guy, professor at Wake, the head of Englander Institute. And so you just say, I know a bit how to code. I really want to understand more. And the human intelligence won't cope with it. Biology is really complicated for the human mind, too many
Yeah.
scales, too many modalities. So this is like, where I wanted to create a company.
What made you think that building a company was one of the only steps forward instead of many, many other ways of kind of making a difference in that kind of case in the exact problem that you were solving?
100%. I think like most of the academics are making more impact than us. And every time, most of the innovation in medicine and biology actually come from the academic world. But for me, I mean, I knew it was kind of like, we'll need a lot of like, actually like money and people to help me out, because I understood really fast that a lot of data would be needed from a lot of hospitals. AI is not robust, so you kind of gather data from all over the world. At Owkin, we have 80
Yeah.
of the 100 largest hospital. Then, we would need like, a great team. And, I understand that money was the one of the key factor in this space. So I kind of thought that the private route was the best one for me. And also I wanted a kind of an entrepreneur adventure as well, I guess.
How did you establish those early networks with those hospitals and to collect data and things like that? How did
Yeah.
you
This is key,
push that?
right? The modes, right? This is like, you want to have a lot of data, but super high quality. We wanted to work with tier one hospitals. I guess at the time we came in and we were at a French hospital, one of the largest cancer center. And we were like, can we have access to your data? And they were like, like also Google is asking us, other people want it. Why would we give it to you? And first, I'm a doctor, so it was a bit easier to communicate, but I
Yeah.
realized we needed a kind of a unique value prop. And this is where we came is the idea of federated learning as a really key technology for us. And we became leader in this world of federated learning for medicine and biology, and really build a lot of trust with hospitals, and it helped us out. Trust is everything with, hospital and patients. And this is the thing we achieved the best. And most of the centers, we're still working with them on today's basis.
Yeah.
And today we're accessing
Yeah.
80 of the largest hospital in the world, which is huge.
Is there anything that you regret from yeah, you wish you changed from the beginning of Alkin to where it is now? And
100
is
things, you're kidding. Too many things, right? I mean, I think we made a lot of mistakes, but we share the same passion. I have people I'm working with for many years. I think all the mistakes I've done. There's so many, right? I think sometimes I've taken a board that is too big, too many people. I'm not always listening to the board, however, but they're great people as well, just too big. Then I think hiring too much, not getting involved in hiring process. I was with somebody great called Ika. He's the head of Supercell, and he's been like in the interview of the 400 first people. So being really involved. Also really, really like trying to sense the sense of urgency of people that really feel that there's an urgency to move forward very fast. And people that also have this kind of make it work mindset. So I think like that's the biggest one. And in general, we sometimes build things that were very scalable, but just didn't work so well. So I think this kind of framework of make it work before you make it scale is something really important.
you kind of exactly hit the point there. And I guess a lot of early stage right now, it's been a lot like, let me build a product and then kind of ship it to you. But, you guys kind of took another approach where you kind of learned from a lot of other customers that This is what they wanted, and then you guys started building
Yeah,
there.
but it's
How has
they
that kind of
wanted and what we needed to build the solutions for patients, right? Because
yeah.
ultimately we want to understand biology for patients. And, we sell to pharma, but we also try to build our own discoveries, eventually becoming drugs or diagnostic tools. And we just spin out our diagnostic franchise, for example. So I guess, it's, I think like you want to be able to build not 100 solutions, just one product, but it needs to fit all needs. And when you have internal kind of IP as well as helping other people as a go-to market, it's tougher because the needs are not always exactly the same, but you don't want to have two platforms. You just want one. So I think that's and then the thing that's hard for us is AI for pharma has moved a lot in the last years. I tried a lot of different solutions. I think they had a really hard time hiring the right people. And I think now they're coming back to the idea that R&D research and development of pharma would be replaced or at least very much co-piloted by AI companies. But however, don't have a clear strategy about how to go there.
You kind of got brought up a good point that I want to kind of lead into was the AI in pharma and kind of in the kind of future. What are you seeing right now in the forefront of pharma and the advances right now?
Pharma will leave the R&D to AI-led efforts. It will be a mix of co-piloting, replacing some teams. I think pharma will focus on late-stage clinical trials and commercialization, marketing, market access, blah, blah. But the early stage will be done by AI company, mostly like a GI native company. Hopefully, Owkin AI scientists will do the job really well. Once again, biology is too complicated for the human mind.
Yeah.
And you need the lab in the loop to validate things all the time. You need to have everything in the loop to make it work and make it faster. And you need to parallelize 1,000 experiments at the same time, which is never able to be done by a human structure.
Well, you might be the one who termed the first one to term the biological superintelligence. What does that mean? And are we there right now? How did that look like over
No,
time?
not there, but it means just like people think better than human, right? I guess, and that means that means that being above AGI in biology, once again, it's so complicated, so many scales, so many modalities that you can get there quite fast. Then it's also mean an intelligence that have a cross domain kind of thing, trying to be
Yeah.
able to go from cardiology to like, I don't know, like rejuvenation or cancer is what it's about. And the last point is trying to get as close as possible. When I say as close, because we're not there, right? But to get to a good explanation level, but even better to causality explanation. This causality concept is super important. Is what is the root cause? Can we infer the cause of every single disease? Because when we will get there, this is where we will really make the biggest progress. And a lot of AI is a bit on the chemistry side, which matters. But I think for me, the most important is why are people sick? Why do they relapse? And the why, the cause is really, really what we want to go there. And when we get there, we'll probably be able to kind of use the term biology, artificial superintelligence, which is, where what we want to reach.
In healthcare pharma, the number one thing is the data we're getting collected and things like that. And clearly, Alkit has such a huge data moat in the case of where you're going to collecting data from various pharma. Has that helped you overall when kind of selling to different customers that you guys have versus maybe another company that's kind of focusing a lot on public data sets and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sure. It helps us like to get clients because we really build like very, very huge networks. And it's not
Yeah.
that the quality of the data matters. It's KOL curated, very deeply curated because we are in the hospitals. We have forward engineering team to curate really well. Curation is hard. And so this is the first one. I think like the second one is just the quality of our tools certified by the skills, certified by the best key opinion leaders. And so it's really experts, verticals models. It's harder to get for companies like Anthropic or else because they're mostly based on the World Wide Web. Finally, our LLM, Owkin Zero, has been really fine-tuned on this type of really, really high quality patient data at a single cell level. So I think, yeah, it helps us tremendously at pretty much every day.
You mentioned expanding the network is a key asset kind of, and especially once again, kind of going to the trust issue. How has that kind of worked in your case when you're expanding the network without kind of compromising consent or regulatory hurdles?
We never compromise consent and it's patient's life. However, the responsibility is like people are controlling the hospitals themselves. But we never like, everything is consented and we're very, very careful. This is like, about the data and the idea of the remote access through federated learning was really, we were the first to really get there. So that's, you never want to compromise. However, you really want to have data that capture the heterogeneity of patients and the heterogeneity of clinical practice. So you need to be global. Diagnostic tools with AI in one city might not even work in the city like 10 kilometers apart from it because
Yeah.
just the clinical practice is different. So you really need to be global in the way you access data.
Back in JPM, around JPM time in January, you released, I guess maybe you guys are continuously doing it as a partnership with NVIDIA to scale your Owkin Zero models using, I guess, like the specific reinforcement learning tools that you guys kind of developed and
Yeah.
integrate Claude, et cetera. How has that partnership evolved over time now since we're in March? Is it still growing? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, for NVIDIA, I know, we also announced we're part of the Anthropic launch for Cloud for Healthcare. So, I mean, we think like Anthropic is doing it's a fantastic company, right? Really like, and
Oh,
I think like the way they see things and the quality of things they build, especially in biology. I think Dario also has this kind of like biology background. It's extremely interesting. We are discussing a lot of things, for sure. Like there's a lot of things we can sell to for example, the LLM companies, but do we want to sell our modes? It's a biggest question. Probably not. For NVIDIA, I think we're discussing about more things on the compute side together. I mean, the business model with NVIDIA is always a tough one, right? You buy things and then you fundraise and then you have to purchase. And this is a bit
oh,
also you don't want to be in this trick either. So I think it's an amazing company. They're building a lot of things. They're very lean and smart in the way they approach healthcare. But I mean, the new Google TPUs are super exciting. And maybe like a revolution to come, harder to implement. But I think this kind of something that we're discussing a bit all across the board. But for sure, we have a lot of very deep discussion with big tech, which was new for us because before we were mostly selling to pharma, and now there's a lot of like partnership possibilities with this kind of one.
absolutely. I know you guys have your own models, but do you guys kind of live underneath other models as well?
Yeah, cloud coding, especially cloud coding agent. I mean, all the architecture and the orchestration is made with this, so it's amazing agent, and it's difficult not to use it.
How will kind of going back to the biological superintelligence quickly, how did that kind of fundamentally change over time? And, will that change the economics of, I guess, drug development, especially in the
Oh, yeah.
industry? And
Yeah, the teams will be much smaller, things will be much faster. Hopefully, the probability of success will double. It will not triple. I think like go 10 to 20%, which is already huge.
yeah,
People will have a more personalized medicine. We will maybe be able to build one drug for every person in a different manner in the kind of close future. So precision medicine will happen. And these tools like AI scientists will also, I think, behave very well in healthcare, sorry, in the day-to-day care environment, in like tumor boards, taking really great decisions. And so our tools, we're trying to play around also like what is the clinical decision he can take, regulatory grain mode, but just like exploring because I think you always want to connect research to care to be able to really, really capture things well.
for founders selling to pharma right now, what are the kind of ROIs that they're expecting? And how can founders adapt to the fast moving mindset right now?
It's difficult to work with pharma, a very long time of sales cycle, not always a clear strategy. Very powerful companies, very innovative compared to CROs and great. But I think that the pharma has structural problems. The first is like the CEO. The CEO, have too much money. And I always say it, but it's true. They have so much money that they usually think about having another year with that much money, which is next year, but they don't really think long term. Sometimes you need it to build with good AI. I think that, the CEO don't always get what AI means. And I think, it's difficult sometimes to work with pharma. It takes a lot of time because you want to be able to have repeatable business, but you also want to be able to capture the milestones, right? If your AI helps building Vegovi, you want a share of this. So you want to be able to capture the value. And
Yeah.
I think it's just like being patient, trying to talk to the right people, being bottom up and up to bottom. Bottom up and up to bottom, like in terms of how you approach things, top down and bottom up. You need to convince probably, a lot of people in the C-level suite, but also like people that are working day to day. You also need to figure out where you can co-build things because I think there's always a natural competition between kind of the bioinformatic team and sometimes and what you are trying to build with AI. So it's important to kind of co-build together, have this spirit of a common lab.
Can you, I guess, walk us through like a concrete end-to-end example of how, I guess biotech teams use K-Pro and I guess the literature behind it and that kind of like the biomarker insights and how that value changed over time as well?
Kepro is really meant to kind of replace the life cycle of the drug from target to, chemistry, translational work, early clinical trials design until like phase 2 kind of thing. And so for now, we announced a partnership where people are going to use the biomarker side of Kepro mostly, trying to figure out what's the right indication and the right population for the early clinical trials. Another one is using maybe the more like competitive intelligence kind of function of Kepro and how to use new targets. We start to include chemistry, we pick ourselves and everything. So this is also part of the solution. Otherwise, it's mostly internal for now. So I think today this is some examples, but we'd love just Kepro to be used across R&D from target to phase 2 all along the way, where we
Yeah.
really need anything else but us. But it's difficult to make this sell right now, but it will come. People are selling already on the platform.
Right. And will pharma and, I guess biotech as well have be very verticalized kind of in the future, or will the best winners kind of be horizontal, kind of approaching the end to
I'm making the bet of horizontal and one fits all. I'm
yeah.
also building the stack with kind of spin out on diagnostic therapeutics and, spin up by Optimus, which is the multimodal embeddings. I think the right stack in terms of company, and you cannot have one company and it kind of like create because sometimes the needs are different and the teams are different. I'm taking the bet that healthcare will evolve this way with R&D made by AI mostly or driven by AI, directed, decided by AI, and then the rest will be the pharma still.
How did you guys kind of deeply integrate into workflows?
Simple. Yeah, we first you need to understand the workflows and who is doing what, but then you need to understand if people are going to use the agent and how they're going to love the agent. It's like something that is it's always complicated, but then you need to also like of course show that you're proving you're solving a problem for them. But I think then you need also just a very good data connector. You call it data transformation agents, where you can connect those and own data, sometimes even their own tools, and to be able to do this seamlessly in a few hours, not a few weeks, is super important because otherwise you lose energy from all sides.
How has Owkin kind of changed over time to become, I guess, more AI centric since 2016? And what has that been looking like since in the team level, where you had to kind of tell your team this is the way we have to go, and how comprehensive has that been overall?
I mean, we started by more like heavily loaded consulting type of thing. No, a year ago, we said kind of to really replace it by one platform, one solution based AI scientist. And I think, there was a kind of a bit of a transition because we had a lot of different tools, data sets, but nothing in one platform. So I think,
Yeah.
this is where we had to take the team apart. This is where we started to need more software engineering kind of framework, right? To be able to do more and of course more MLOps when you start to train your LLM, and of course like more reinforcement learning type of capabilities in the frontier team. I still think we were a little bit low in terms of software engineering, but then we also like kind of like got very manual on the way we were gathering data on the partnership side, and now we're trying to be more automatic. So we changed that. I think everything's moving more towards kind of software engineering, way more for simulating everything. I think this is really the path. It's still important to keep people from the pharma, and culture wise, when you hire people from the biotech to kind of the assets to validate this in spinouts, they're very culturally different. You need to be able to handle this as well. It's difficult.
How has the strategy of scaling Owkin changed from the beginning to now? And now, as you mentioned, you're going into more on the technology more than pharma as well. Was that something that you were?
The LLM has changed so much. The cloud coding agents, when you can run your own protocols, ideas, can discover new
Yeah,
things, can optimize for novelty, discover it's so cool, right? So I'm always trying to optimize for coolness and what I like to do, and that means sometimes we change things, and the team does oh we're changing again, blah blah. But I think I think this is a monopoly game, right? There is no winner in AI for biology. Anthropic has one enterprise kind of SaaS in LLM. I think on the consumer side, OpenAI start to be beaten by Google and Meta is still like somewhere. In AI for biology, a lot of people are trying to win this game. Even Oracle, but Larry Ellison is big on this. But also is Anthropic, Google, OpenAI. But I think we can win it, and there is still a position to win. Because we have everything in the loop. Of course, we're much smaller. We don't have the same money, but I think we have the right data, which is a huge moat. The right structure of the team. We can validate things in assets. So I
yeah.
think we have a chance. And I'm not having a sovereign play. I don't want to be first in Europe. I want to be first in the world, and I'm trying to. But it's a tough game.
You guys clearly have also a distribution moat as well, right? I mean, some big moats that you guys have is obviously data distribution. Is there any moats that you guys are kind of?
We miss China, and China is huge. I was in Hong Kong like 2 days ago, and China is amazing. They're so fast, they're so smart. And you think like VC in China, they're like wow. And China is like sometimes it's a little under the radar, but one molecule out of two come from China. Manufacturing is excellent. Talents in AI are amazing, and I was like really impressed. And we were a bit scared to go to China for like geopolitical reasons. We're a US based company, but I think we're missing this part for sure.
What are the differences that you've seen in China that you kind of are like, okay, this is a specific market we potentially want to go through?
The energy, the scale, the size, the
Yeah,
quality, the very quick turnaround, right? You can turn around things really, really fast. Even for clinical
yeah.
trials, you can make a proof of concept there, and then you go back to Europe and the US. It's a huge market as well, right? Europe is not a market, and people, especially in the pharma space, nobody really care about Europe.
What are there any kind of specific memorable examples that you have with K-Pro or specific Owkin products that people have come and said, "Hey, Thomas, this has been amazing for my team." Any
Just
pretty.
big pharmas that really tried to figure out what was the right disease for the early clinical trial drugs. A new target we just found, in a very cool, in a very important cancer, and it seems really, really promising because a good mechanism. We find a way to actually understand which patients in cardiovascular severe disease would have a worse evolution and try to figure out decisions for them. We just, I have played around right now with very complicated patients in stage 4 bladder cancer and figure out if they could find good ideas for them, and it should really work, I think, very, very well. Even though it's not regulatory grade, it was great. I mean, like, it's so amazing, this type of intelligence. It just matters.
Oh,
And that's
I mean, yeah, you guys are making such impact the on that side and the patient side. I mean, it's completely
Yeah, I
huge.
mean, I mean, I'm a doctor. I'm really here. I mean, a lot of things are just how because my what is treating patients. And once again, when I say like you think cancer is not treated, we have no idea why people have cancer. Worse for Alzheimer, no idea either. Even aging is misunderstood. We have so much to understand.
Yeah, and hopefully we're getting to that situation. I mean, and yeah, that's what I'm
No, but
hoping.
we're far away, but yeah, I hope so because yeah, I mean, we have love. We are seeing cancer in very young patients right now. Pancreatic cancer in 40 years old. It's new.
What are you most optimistic about in coming years so far when it comes to, I guess, super intelligence?
I'm just optimistic that it's becoming real and people will understand it. It's more complicated to understand, an Owkin or Cloud for healthcare because you have different layers. You have the technology, you have the data, you have the validation. You need to show that what you discover with your AI scientist is true in patients. So you need to build assets to really
Yeah,
the ultimate proof point. So it's more complicated. And like politicians don't pick up. In Europe, people don't really care about healthcare. However, it's super important. I mean, like, of course, it's important for everyone, but it's also the biggest productivity gain. When your population is healthy, you have a better growth, and people don't get this in Europe so much. It's not a value because it's free, so it's a consumption good. France, healthcare is a consumption good. It's free. People don't understand the value. The US, people do invest in healthcare. It's different. I don't really love the US systems because it's also people sometimes cannot be treated, which is not what we want. I think there's something about it, but I think like I'm hoping that people will have more culture interest in AI for biology, even though it's complicated, that it becomes a sovereign play everywhere because, people need to invest in healthcare. Nothing is free.
no, for sure, absolutely, I completely agree with that. Final question before rapid fire. You mentioned Europe, and I wanted to kind of see what do you think are the biggest changes that need to come into the European kind of tech landscape right now, since it's really out there, kind of quote unquote outdated. The biggest argument is they're not really catching up with the biggest players right now. I mean, and it's a big lag behind for them. What do you think that they should be doing, and something like
No, I think
hard on policy
there's a
level?
few companies that are really standing out, right? 11 Labs is number one, which is really cool. Like Poland is doing super well. Mistral is a good company, but they won't be number one, but they're amazing in the field. Alan is doing a good job. Hugging Face, also pretty. But I think, but and there's very few exits, unfortunately. However, there is big fundraise more and more, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is the exit, right? So I think like, I think what misses in Europe in general is ambition. There's no ambition, and there's people will say, yeah, it's not true, but you don't feel it. You cannot really, and energy. I mean, something that energy is. It's a great country, so many great talents and values, but the energy you have when you're in New York or Hong Kong is
Different.
not the energy you have when you're in Paris. And this is like pretty organic. I don't know why. So it's kind of a little bit of a lack of energy.
Right, right. Two quick rapid fire questions here. So, you were recently at the India AI Summit. What is India's AI stance right now I mean, where they are coming into AI and, when it comes to science development as well that you've
Let's
seen?
say 2 days. Here, same young population, 7 points of growth or six. I don't remember. Like very high growth, super energy countries. People are starting to be very plugged in, even in the streets. People are selling like fruits or clothes in the streets. I think that is a big kind of like really starting to be super AI ready as a country, and I think it's pushed by Modi. It seems like to be very well aware of what needs to be done, of super smart talents within mathematics, and it's not, and also with this kind of emotional intelligence that makes us great leaders. And you can see like Satya Nadella or like, Sundar Pichai. It's like not coming from nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. And, final question here. Which specific agents on Owkin are you most excited for in the next 12 months?
I mean, we build one agent for AI scientists mostly, but there are different skills and functions. I think the functions of trying to know us I mean, the novel biology is really what I'm very, very excited about. The kind of spatial biology understanding and matching to molecules, like the specifics, is super exciting because we can understand co-localization of things. It's really, really exciting. Optimization of phase one is something that is a real bottleneck, I think, today in the field, but also like IP kind of finding, being able to patent IP before the pharma. So the pharma is like, what the fuck? They patent everything. I love that.
Yeah. Final question, I promise. What for founders building in AI biotech, what is common advice that you give them to kind of build in this tough competitive landscape right now?
It's a long-term run, so you need to keep cash ahead of you all the time. You can't just have 6 months of cash ahead of you. So start small, stay lean, and don't hire too much, and hire people that are power users of the new technologies or the platforms, power user of cloud, whatever. People are curious, hacker mindset, like every company is, but still mission-driven,
Yeah.
because you need to be mission-driven to really, really care about things. Because sometimes you do things you don't think is going to impact, but then everything matters in the long-term game. And in biology, things are usually long cycle. So people are used to that 2 years, 3 years, but you need to be very fast, change every 3 months, and be okay to change and iterate. And so it's difficult to have this mindset in biology
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing to have you on the show.
Yeah,
And
thanks so much, Cedric. It was great to talk to you. Hope to see you
yeah,
soon.